Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hi, I'm Justin the guy. Today we're working on this Dura-Ace Klein road bike. We just got it all shiny and new. Now we cleaned the parts, now we need to lube those and put them on. So this is a little bit about doing such. And a couple of gold nuggets in there is, you'll have to see. Anyway, it comes with a 105 componentry with a Cyclery derailleur, with the 105 front shifters. These guys came back to life quite well. So without further ado, let's show you what I do to prep these parts prior to putting them on. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hi, I'm Justin the guy. Obviously, I have a garage shop. Taking scary out of used bikes one bike at a time. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Alrighty, so what I found is this chain is kind of corroded and gross. So even though it may not be too terribly stretched, we can just take a look at it real quick and determine it. But yeah, this one's got stretch. So I kept it aside though, because I'm gonna measure it with a new chain. That's what I'm gonna do with that guy. Starting off with the shifters, what I like to use is Tri-Flow Superior Lube. Let's call it Super Lube, but it's Superior Lube. What I like to do is push a little bit inside. I like the foaming version because it seeps into the little parts and all the little pawls really well. And do the same for this guy here. Oh! Smash! This never happened. Nah. Right back at it. Anyway, that's when I like doing this live. So I use the drip Super Lube to get into these parts. Also, I like to lube the barrel adjuster. Also, the bolt mount for the cable. You can always use a little bit. In addition to, I like to scuff these pads up so they're not that glazed. Also, you'll find little metal shavings or what have you, contaminants. You want to have that all cleaned out. So doesn't take much, just enough to give it a little more of a bite, especially with older pads. If you're going to replace these, I have other videos, but you loosen this screw up, slide the pad out, put the new one in, screw this Phillips screw back down. Keep in mind, these are sided, so left and right, or however you want to look at it. The easy way to know is the screw portion is going to be on the back of the bike because the force of the wheels going forward in there. So you want the screws to be at the back. Don't ever install these pads this way because you're actually running a risk of this failing and the pad sliding right out. So those are purposely. So by looking at this, I know this is the front. And looking at this one, this mounts on the frame of the back going this direction. Little gold nugget there. And I didn't get the cable removed off of this one. Like so, totally missed it. So we're gonna do the same thing here. A couple drops of lube. Also, I like to put a little bit of grease on these bolts. That's probably a little much, but just a light coating. So when it goes inside the frame, the chances of it seizing up is less, especially if you live in an area where there's more humidity, that kind of thing. These will go inside those. This is actually the crank bolts, cable guide, a little screw that go to the cable guide. I like to put a little grease on this as well. And you can see if it's underneath the bike, it gets a little contaminated, so you put a little bit of lube there. These are the bottle cage mounts. These goes inside here. Also, a little bit of grease on these guys for preparation. It's always good. Then onto the rear derailleur. I do, even though a lot of these bearing or jockey pulleys are sealed, it's still good to have a little bit of grease there, especially if they have rubber bushings. And again, this has been through the sauna cleaner, so it pretty much has no grease on it. So this is where you can get a good coating. Also the bolt here as well, and the adjuster there. Get those dry. There you go. Crank really don't do anything for cleaning. This is the Brazon mount. Even though this is fixed, I still put a little bit of grease in there because you want to be able to open these up and get them back on. The front derailleur, all the little pivots, and Superior Lube from Tri-Flow seems to be nice and light, doesn't cake up, and it does wonders of bringing shifters and derailleurs back to life. And show you these guys, they get kind of stiff doing that, so having a little bit of grease there is huge. We'll measure the chain once come that time, and that's bar tape for the next segment, but that's what I pretty much do to prep these. So let's throw them on real quick. All right, we're ready to throw these guys on. Let's run this front to back and show you how those parts go on there. So we'll start with the shifters up front. So I'm going to start with the right shifter. This goes inside where the bolt is. I don't know if I can give you a little sneak peek, but the bolt is right in there. That's where you're trying to get that Allen in. And you need to kind of strategically slide these on. So where this is pretty flush and you want it to be parallel with the drops. That's the front one. I'm sorry, the rear one, and then we're gonna do the front one. Also, you always wanna be careful. Sometimes these bars will smash into the frame just like when it has no cables to kind of restrict it. So keep mindful of that when you're working on a bike that's completely stripped down. Could be a problematic situation on that. So for me to measure these out, here's a ruler. So sometimes it's pretty close. Now one you can tell is a little high, so we're gonna go down a little bit. See what I'm doing is like measuring by the flatness of the bars there. So that's the shifters. Now going with the brakes. So like I talked about before, of these mounting screws on the brake pads, you know, these mounts here are indicative to which the front and rear. So you want to keep that in mind as well. So when you take this off, try not to lose any spacers or the bolt. This guy goes in here. There. And I like to tighten these up, not too tight, enough to be able to move it back and forth, but hold its position. Reason being is when I do adjustments, once I get the cable in there, then I do the final touch-ups on those. And then for the rear, slides through. You don't want this bolt here to come out of the frame on that side. So if you get a brake set and it sticks out, you need to get a different one of these. There's several different sizes, about 5 different sizes. You can use sometimes either or front or back, but you want to keep track of those. So if you buy just a frame, you might have to experiment with a couple of them until you get the right fitting. So that's that guy. Next is the crankset. So before just throwing it on there, I want to show what I do to prep it. When I take the crank, some of these have a self-extracting bolts. The 105s did not. You can always upgrade, find some on eBay or what have you to replace those. That's not a problem to do that. Also, here's the left. I kind of like to set those up so they're staged and get my, not the right size, Allen. Actually, I use this guy. And that takes the number 8. That fits into these guys. So put that in my pocket. Ready to go. So I'm gonna flip it up and throw them on. But before that, I'll just put on the cable guide and give you a little sneak peek of that. Alrighty, so it's going to go right into this threaded hole here where I've taken it off. And the threads are right here. A lot of them will be threaded. Keep in mind that the front derailleur cable is going to loop through here, and you can kind of see some scarring right here from the cable itself. Magnets. And then this one's going to be straight. So when you're thinking of putting those together, so you don't want to put it this way, you want to put it this way. And the spacing is pretty important too. So I know there usually will be 2 holes. Now it's all burgered up. Get out of there. Oh, that's a good place to have a magnet. There we go. So if you haven't seen it, this one's already been scarred. That's where it was originally. But if you put it over here, that shifts the cables over too far over. So you want to have a kind of the path of least resistance is the idea with any cable routing and so forth. A little snug, but not too tight. You don't want them barreling cranked down tight. So that's your cable guide that goes underneath there. So I'm kind of glad that I have this particular style, so you can see the notches. They're engraved in there to match up here. So when you have a self-extracting one, it's kind of, you can't really see those. So this is really giving you a good example what you're looking at. So you want to line these up so it fits those teeth marks right on, like so. That way they have a line of contact. This is alloy, aluminum, right? So if you get these crooked, they will scar the inside of this. This is steel. So you're gonna have a little trouble if you don't get it lined up just right. If you can't see it with those self-extracting bolts, which you can't, I try to visualize the notch on the opposite side vertically. So I kind of know that it is pretty straightforward, because these are straight up and down crosswise. So that's what you want to do there. I'm going to throw a little bit of lube on these so they're easier to take off next time around. Doesn't need to be a lot, just enough to give a little bit of a coating, usually preventing it from seizing. Line up those notches, you'll feel engage. Then you want to make sure you have your little washer there. And tighten it up like so. And it will bottom out. So it's really kind of, you'll know when you're done tightening. Boom. That's that one. Same thing here. Just make sure you're not doing it the same direction, but the opposite direction. Sometimes, get confused while you're working on stuff. That spacer's already in there, so. There we go. Whee! So now, since I have that crankset on there. Now I can put the front derailleur. You can put the front derailleur on there, but you may not know where exactly to put it because the front derailleur is correlation to the spacing of the crank arm chain rings. So let's show you how that works. We got this guy here. You can see the scarring from the front derailleur being on there before. That's usually a good indication where you need to go. It's a good start. So the idea is it needs to be parallel to the chain rings. And these used to have a little sticker on them that had a little 2 millimeter little hash mark on them. That's what you want to shoot for. And not at this, that's the sitting position. A lot of these derailleurs, sometimes they ramp upwards when they go up because of the pivot. So you can't really test it until it's been tightened down. So that's what you're looking for, is that spacing, about 2-3 millimeters above that. And parallel this way, like so. So in the prior video, we went over wheels. Got a wheel here. Don't put these on until I'm at this point. Reason being is I got to check that dropout as well as the derailleur hanger, more importantly the derailleur hanger, to make sure it's in line by using a derailleur hanger alignment tool. Mouthful, but got to have the wheel in there flush. This particular type of dropout is rear entry, not your traditional dropout there. So it goes flush this direction into it. That's what's kind of cool about these Klein frames, because that force of energy is going forward, which is smashing into the frame and not possibly wedging out. Kind of a lost idea design, especially no longer really that valid since everything for brand new is most likely a through axle design. You grab my DAG 2.2 derailleur alignment tool or gauge. And this is how this works. You want to be even across all points. So here it's a little bit, needs to be a little bit further out to equal the opposite direction. So you're looking for all points. You can adjust this to get in this space here, but when I could do 75% of the angle, I'm pretty much confident that it's pretty straight enough. Then it's time to put on that rear derailleur. And how I'm holding this, that's a little gold nugget trick. To get this little screw to go over the derailleur hanger hook, I kind of have to hold the derailleur down like this to get it out of the way. So I have a little hand position that pushes this forward with my thumb so I can get at it without smashing into the frame. Something you naturally do it after doing so many years, but you forget about. That's kind of like a neat little handheld trick, that kind of thing, to get that derailleur on there. So that's all set. Now we just need to do the front wheel. Quick release on the left side of the bike. So if you're sitting on it, that's on where your left hand is, matching the rear. Which, it's kind of funny. The wheel can go either direction. Sometimes tires are directional, so you gotta keep that in mind when you're mounting all this stuff together. But if you keep it consistent, it doesn't become an issue. And I like to go with the fork blade here to clamp it down. That gives me a little extra leverage. And when we do the cables, we'll tighten that up. Now for the chain, last bit. Okay, remember I'm going to replace this chain, so the chain itself is stretched. And I got myself a new chain, 9-speed. This is a Serena PC71. There's some like 51 and 31s, a cheaper model or heavier. But some people really geek out on their chains. So keep in mind, anything with performance goes. Higher the performance, the better quality it is for a shorter period of time of life. So if you want durability, go a little cheaper. Long lasting, go a little cheaper. Better performance, lighter weight, go more expensive. Keep in mind, it's not gonna last as long as these. So, or the lower end. That's your piece there. There's pieces all over the place. Where'd you go? Over there. Okay, so over here, I'm going to measure it exact. It's gonna line it up exact. And over here, I'm gonna show you where. Actually, let's see here. This is a good way to do it. Okay. So I'm gonna line these two guys up evenly here. I'm gonna match the space as many the same. Line it up. So the new chains are gonna be a little bit longer. So gonna be cutting the chain here. Well, should I cut it here? No, because it's actually a ceram. I don't need this extra bit because this replaces this piece here. So I'm gonna be cutting or trimming it there. I don't have to push it all the way through, just enough that. Then here's no gold nugget. You keep this little piece and you put it in your pack. Just in case you break your chain while in your ride, you at least have a little extra bit that you can splice in there if need be on to continue your ride. So this chain is now cut to length compared to the old one. Here's a note. The chain I took on there was appropriate length. I measured it when I was checking it. If you buy a used bike, don't assume that. So you'll have to go through the actual chain measurement on the frame itself. That'll be a whole separate video in itself. I'm not going to get into that, and there's plenty of other videos out there to Google it up. But on this particular chain, I knew it matched, so I cut it to match. So if you have a bike, you know it matches, it's the right length, then you just do this process. If you don't know, and it's a new bike to you that's used, then you might want to double check it by measuring it out. To put the last piece on there, before we start stringing up cables, is the chain. You thread it through the derailleur. Well, I like to anyway. There's several different ways of doing it, but this is the direction I like to go. There you go. Like so. The reason being is I like to put it together down here or do any chain work. If you do it on the top, you're fighting gravity. This way you can see it just hangs there and you can access it. There's a whole bunch of little tricks out there that you can do. And these do come pre-treated with a kind of like a manufacturer grease. I usually leave it on there. It lasts a while and it does pretty decent. But when you do the first cleaning, that's when you can replace it with a grease that you prefer. How does quick links, power links work, depending what brand it is. Oh, you can use this, squeeze it together. There we go. So hold shape. Then use these MLP-1.2. So 1.1 didn't make the cut apparently. Anyway, that was span out. And what that is a notched reverse kind of plier. You use the same tool to take it apart and put it together. That's with the power link as well as the quick links power links for SRAM, quick links for Shimano, and I'm sure there's X-Link for another brand. Anyway, same kind of concept between all three of them. And between you and me, a lot of them are interchangeable. So the spacing on these things are about the same between them. And there's probably going to be somebody out there like, no, they're not. Well, probably are, and they probably work in a pinch. So keep that in mind. Specifications on these, and most likely they're made in the same place. That's how a lot of manufacturing is. So anywho, that's the last bit there. Got my parts on. The next video is going to be stringing it up. Thank you for spending some time with me from the garage. Until next time, have a wonderful day.